accountable is the EU?
Right. What kind of a sham is the EU is probably the better... Well, yeah. The commissioners aren't elected. They're selected or nominated by the various countries. So there's one for each country. And there's some very doubtful ones there. When they were voted in, as you probably know, one, I think from Romania, who had a criminal record, was discarded. So they've been a bit slow this time, reallocating those places. But in 2004, when they were elected, we had the same problem. We had a shifty bunch there, some of whom were ex-communists, who I remember one of whom, I think it was the Hungarian, he had been in charge of subduing the Czechs, Czechoslovakia, and sending the tanks in under the Soviet regime. And he was still there as a commissioner. And we've got all of these strange people. Of course, Barroso himself is a communist, he's a Portuguese communist. So we've got a real mixed bag in that parliament, not just at high level in the commission, but at all levels. Even in our group, we have the Lega Nord, who are Italian, and they believe that Italy should be divided in half because they're North Italians and they don't particularly want to associate with the plebs in the south in their sort of view, because that's too agricultural for them and they're very sophisticated in the north. So that's what's happening there. They want a division of Italy. And there's all sorts of amazing views there. But accountability is what you were talking about. What I was trying to say was the people in charge are really the Commission, and if they're accountable to the public, tell me how. Because they're not voted, they're not. So there isn't any accountability. The MEPs are asked to vote on things, but the Commission can decide in the long run whether those things are going to go through or not. So really, we're voting on suggestions, and it doesn't have to take legal force. Now, if you come to Strasbourg or Brussels, you'll see how many votes we do. It's there again, it's criminal. Out of the 4 days in Strasbourg every month, we have 2 days, can be 3 days, 2 or 3 days a month voting. And that takes place at about 11 o'clock or 11:30 for an hour or so voting. And they'll squeeze as many votes through on the agenda as they can, all different subjects. There might be a page on transport with some new variation of tractor parts or windscreen wipers on tractors and all the crazy things that they vote on, all down there. And you might find that we have to vote on as many as 900 items. Now they'll lump some of those together, so there'll be 50 together, because they're all amendments that the groups have brought forward to a proposal. And you have to vote yes or no to 50 different things in one vote. So it won't surprise you then to know that we actually got through 900 in just over an hour once. But the voting is also at a hell of a pace, because most of it isn't registered with the buttons. You know, you're not on the screen with the electronic voting. Most of it's hands in the air. And it's so quick. It's yes, no, abstain. Yes, no, abstain. And you're supposed to get your hand up in the right position while they're saying yes, no, or abstain. And don't forget, that guy at the front's probably not English. He might be Portuguese or Italian or whatever. So we're on the headphones listening to this, and it's translated. So we don't exactly know what he's saying. We're listening to the translation, which comes a little bit slower. So sometimes when it's yes, no, abstain, instead of getting into yes, people could get through to no or abstain and get their hand in the wrong place because there's a time lag. So occasionally when we can see that it isn't a reflection of what was intended, or that they've obviously counted the votes wrongly, because it's very quick, hands in the air, blah, 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 and they decide, say, passed or not, we will say check. We'll shout check. And sometimes they won't even allow the check, but often they do. And when they do, they find it's wrong, because it's been as bad as 75% voting against something when the darn thing has gone through on a pass, because they've got it wrong. They've counted it wrong. And we objected to this, saying, why can't we use the electronic buttons every time? We've got the system here, etc., etc. And it came back. We actually put it in as a written question as well as asking in the Parliament. We were told it cost too much money to press the buttons. But with the electronics, it's on the scoreboard and you can see how many voted for, against and abstained. It also shows on there in colour which seats voted. So you can look at that and say, oh yes, UKIP voted against as usual, or the Conservatives voted for as usual, and so on and so on. And it's also registered on the register, so you can actually go on to the EU website and see how people voted. It's very open, that is. But as I say, it probably doesn't mean a lot, because although the MEPs are elected, the final judgment is by people who aren't.